Can trauma become a catalyst for self-love, discovery, and forgiveness? Or is it something that has to control you and has to control the rest of your life? Today's guest has some powerful advice on this that I promise you don't want to miss. Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Best Advice Podcast Show. I'm your host, Angela Watley, and I'm so excited. Today's guest has such a wonderful message that I know is going to impact lives and maybe just change your life, actually. So welcome, Srea.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
And actually, I know I love your name, Srea, but I know you also go by SJ. Is it okay to
I
call?
do. I go by SJ, and it's preferred. It's preferred. It's just,
Okay.
I'm a homegirl kind of. So yeah, I
Okay.
like us to be comfortable.
So she's a self-love strategist. And I mean, at the base of everything in life, I feel everybody needs self-love. Everybody has to love themselves first. So I'm so excited that you're here. Can I just ask you, what made you become a self-love strategist?
That's a great question. Sure. In all actuality, going through my own trauma and having to kind of bring myself through, discovering very early on that I am an educator. I'm a teacher. Just sometimes just through life, the things that we go through just kind of shows us our purpose. And so self-love was something that I really, really needed to work on for myself. That's been a journey that I've been on seemingly forever. And I feel like once you get it, once you learn something, it's your job to teach other people. And I know that that's my mission, like beyond a shadow of a doubt. I know that it is absolutely my mission to teach people how to love themselves a little bit better. A whole lot better if I'm really, not to put too fine a point on it, but we can take baby steps.
Right.
Even just loving yourself a little bit better today is
Right.
going to make today much better than tomorrow was. So, and I have granddaughters. It's important to me that self-love be instilled in them. It was not instilled in me. My story is that I'm a survivor of childhood abuse. And like a lot of us, having to survive that doesn't leave a lot of room, for learning how to love yourself.
Right.
So it's the mission that fulfills me. It's the solution to the problem. I am a solutionist, if nothing else. I'm a true born Aquarian.
Right.
And that's just how that is. So yeah.
So this is a safe space. But I do want to ask you just in terms of your message, because there may be people there who feel that they can absorb your message better if they can relate to you, right? How much further would you like to go in terms of describing what you went through, your trauma?
I'm good. I'm very good.
Okay. Are you able to explain the age range you went through it and how you overcame it, or what was your path forward after you realized this is not right, you know?
Right. So let's get into it, and please excuse my light going in and out.
Yeah.
But so I shared that I am a survivor of childhood abuse. I have recently started to share the story publicly that, my mom was my first abuser. Because of whatever traumas and trials and things that she was going through, just, what her story is, because I don't discount that at all. But, the result was she was my first abuser. So a lot of women, I think, that I talk to, they have a story of a male being their abuser. They have something against men.
Ready to transform your life or just tired of feeling stuck? Conquer stress, boost confidence, overcome fears, and more. Unlock your potential with a private mindset coaching session with Angela. Your breakthrough begins here. Visit newmindsetnow.com. So don't wait. Book your session now.
I'm on both spectrums of that. My mother being my first abuser, as far as physically, emotionally, mentally, and then my second abuser, of course, the first person to abandon me being my father, and I remember that day like it was yesterday. Um, and then the third person to be, a person that my mother was dealing with, that went into sexual abuse. So I've gotten it from both ends of the spectrum, if that makes sense. And so I know what men are capable of, but I also know what women are capable of. And I'm a woman. So there were a lot of things that I had to reconcile within myself. First 19 years of my life, I didn't know if anybody really loved me. I thought that, I was put here to be abused. I was put here, to be the brunt of whatever it was. I couldn't figure it out, and for whatever reason, my toxicity at the time, I decided, I was going to have kids. And when I had kids with the sole purpose of doing everything the opposite of my mother and father. Now, some people may hear that and be like, oh, but quite honestly, that's that's really toxic. It was really dangerous. It came from a place of pain, um, of just wanting someone to love me. And so, hey, I'm gonna have a baby and that's gonna be it, as though it's that easy. And so, yeah, but I do believe, and I don't want to make it seem like this is the norm in any way, but I do believe that having my daughter, having my kids saved my life. That's when I really did learn to start loving, is having my kids. So really my purpose is I want to be the best woman, the best person, but I wanted to be the best parent too. So self-love was the way to do that. It was the way to do that.
What was a pivotal moment for you as a parent where you're like, okay, I need to focus on self-love so I can be the best parent and not let my past in any way, like, shape my future with my own kids?
One pivotal moment was me leaving to go to the military.
Mm.
I left to go to the military because I was running. As I'd survived my household, my childhood household, and started living life on my own because, I had my kids, of course, gotten into different relationships, some good, some bad. I was toxic in all of them, so it really didn't matter. So, we all have our stuff, and I'm a self-love strategist, and the crux of that is really just being able to acknowledge your own stuff. So I'm really big on that. Um, I'd landed myself in a relationship that had turned abusive.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not really that kind of girl. Okay. So let's just say that I'm not really that kind of girl. I didn't, but I'm still in this space where I really don't know me completely. Does that make sense? I know that this isn't right.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm in a moment, and I'm gonna be very, very honest and very candid. It was a moment where I had really thought about taking myself out of here.
Mm-hmm.
Because here I am again. I survived being abused by my mom. I got over being abandoned by my dad. I got through this sexual trauma. I'm going from, relationship, and I would love to believe I'm learning,
Mm-hmm.
with each of these experiences. But here I am again in this situation where someone's abusing me.
Right.
I'm questioning myself. What about me
Right.
is, what is there a sign on my back?
Mm-hmm.
Why is this my life?
Right.
And I remember standing in the kitchen. My kids were in school, and things had gotten really, really bad, really, really quickly. And I was at that point, and it was a phone call that saved me. A phone call of a friend, just checking,
Yeah.
just checking on me.
Right.
Whatever led him to be checking on, just checking on me.
Yeah.
And in that moment, I knew that I had to do something different.
Right.
Fast, hard decisions have to be made. Chick, you standing here with a knife in your hand at your, like,
Right.
what if your kids come home and find you? What if that's what happens
Mhm.
after this? For you, it's over. So I'm immediately just like, okay, no, this cannot be their story. I cannot do that to them.
Right.
I'd had a friend that had been trying to recruit me into the Navy for years, and I used to be very staunchly against the military. Thought they were brainwashed, just all kind of toxic stuff, the stuff that we say, like when we just don't know.
Right.
And out of desperate, I called him. I gotta go. What can we do? I had taken the ASVAB just for, just for giggles, score very high. And yeah, he got me I told him I wanted to be on the first thing smoking because I wanted to learn how to fight.
Yeah.
So I went to the military. That was the moment. That was it.
I definitely see like a light about you, right? So obviously you've done a lot of work on yourself and I love it. I love
Oh,
it.
thank you.
So what do
I'm
you
glad it shows.
so what do you do now to help other people or the women who, need more self-love? What is your process?
I'm sorry. I interrupted. I didn't hear the end of your question.
No, that's okay. What's your process? And like at what point, I'm going to add to it actually. At what point would you suggest someone contact you for help with like loving themselves?
You can contact me now. You can contact me now. I listen, the the fast hard truth of it is, as I get older, as I decide to take in more, because learning is a choice,
Right.
you know, um, and I'm a nerd. I'm a nerd through and through.
Yeah.
So learning is my process. So as I learn, I want to teach.
Mhm.
What I know is that there are a lot of people, even though we may brush our teeth every day, I know there are a lot of people that don't look at themselves in the mirror while they do it.
Mhm.
I know that there are a lot of us out here that have spent so much time surviving that we have no clue how to thrive. So when I listen to people and how they are relating to others, when I listen to this battle that seems to never be ending between men and women, and how to navigate relationships, I can tell instantly we're not loving ourselves enough. Because quite honestly, and not to put too fine a point on it, if you loved yourself better, you'd make better decisions.
I agree with that. I agree with
It
that.
is just that simple. And so, like I said, when I'm standing there,
Mhm.
I don't want anybody else to get to the point where they're standing there with the knife.
Right.
That's extreme.
Right.
That's an extreme point, and it could have gone any number of ways. And that's why I'm always very careful. I'm not ever trying to glamorize what happened. I've just processed it so I can talk about it, and use it as a lesson for somebody else, but never, to seem like, hey, I did this. That was a really dark time.
Right.
I don't wish that time on anybody. So my darlings, please don't wait until there's a knife in your hand.
Right.
The moment that, you start feeling, that you're just not quite yourself. Some people are walking through, we don't really realize that we don't know ourselves,
Mhm.
which is the first step and self-love. You know how much time we spend trying to get to know other people? You asked me about my process. My process is much the same as that. I'm going to reverse it though. And so all that time, so just picture it for a moment with me, if you will, if this is okay. Just picture the time that you saw the guy that you had the biggest crush on. I want you to remember the time that you first saw him, if it was across the room or whatever. Your eyes lock and you know that it's you two, and instantly you want to know everything about him. You want to know who he is, where did he come from, what is he like? And you want to know all of these things. Why? Because, and I'm just going to be real here, because we're planning on fitting ourselves into whatever that narrative is. We're going to find out everything we need to know about it. We're going to go sleuth. Listen, I was a full-fledged detective. Okay.
Right.
I'm going to find out about you. I'm going to get close to a friend. So that I can start to fit into that. Now, as we talk about it, we know that that's a negative. You shouldn't be trying to fit yourself into anybody else's anything. But how do you do this? It's not enough to just say, don't do it. How? I'm going to reverse that process, that same process that you would take to get to know that guy or get to know that girl. We're going to switch it to get to know you. All the questions that you would ask about that person. Who is he? Who is she? Where does she come from? What is she like? We're going to ask you that question. And so I created a framework called the After Effect, AFTA, which stands for acknowledgement, forgiveness, trust, and acceptance of self, because I believe with everything in me, because I've lived it, that those are the 4 most important pillars. There's a whole lot of them. So of course there's going to be people, well, this is important too, and that is important too. Let's live in a little bit of simultaneity here.
Right.
More than one thing can be right. There's more than one way to skin a cat. This is the way that worked for me.
Right.
And I first had to acknowledge some things about myself.
Right.
In order to love yourself, you got to acknowledge some things about yourself.
Right.
And you have to do that with no judgment. For me, that's what acknowledgement is. Acknowledgement is just a statement or a recognition of the facts with no feelings attached, because the facts don't give a F about our feelings, quite honestly.
Right.
They just really don't, which is why in any situation, in any recovery situation, I know you asked me how I help people now. As a registered peer recovery specialist, I literally help people on their recovery journey from substance abuse and mental health. And I've incorporated the after effect into that. Because even that, all of it, at the crux of it, is self-love. Right. So the first thing is acknowledging some things about yourself. And that can be you'd be surprised how hard it can be to just acknowledge everything about you. But yeah, that's a truncated version of my process. We're just going to turn that natural curiosity that we have for other people, to get to know other people, back on ourselves. I want you to know you, because you're worthy of that. You're worthy of that attention from yourself. If you can give it to somebody else, you can definitely give it to you.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. And at the core of it is, like, I'm a mindset fanatic, right? So I can see how you utilize that to make that shift happen. Because if you are in the habit of focusing on everything else, everyone else but yourself, you have to make that mental shift to even start to look inward. You can't even do it without it. So I love that you have a process for that. And I love that you have come through so much and made it a strength that you use to change other people's lives. And I just think that's so
thank you.
It definitely is.
It's humbling. It's to hear, and just because I have so many things to get over, sometimes, it can be hard to take compliments, which is another reason why acknowledging yourself is so important. There was a time where I wouldn't have been able to sit, through that. But because of this process, and because of just learning to love myself exactly as I am, I'm able to take compliments from other people. I'm also able to take criticism from other people. It opens up. Loving yourself, flaws and all, just frees you
Right.
in a way that nothing else does. And I get excited to talk about it because I remember what it was on the other side of
Yeah.
loving myself.
Yeah.
It's not pretty. No matter what we make it look like on the outside, it's not pretty.
Yeah. And at the core of it, I think a lot of people forget that no matter what, you're special, even if only because there's no one in the world exactly like you. Even if you have a twin, even if they look like you, they're not exactly like you. So at the base, at the core of everything, each one of us is special. And then it's just a matter of like building from there. Like what's special about me other than that? Like what do I want? Who am I? Who do I love? What do I love? What's my purpose? And I think it's so apparent that you found your purpose. And I think there's so much beauty in that.
So let's talk about it. Let's talk about how unbeautiful the process is of finding your purpose. Like, I'm so happy that it translates, as beautiful. And what I tell the people that I work with is that, a lot of times we want to be cute on the journey. The journey is where all the work is. And so being able to come out on the other side, and be glowing and all of that stuff, you're really like right before you saw me, there was like calamity behind the curtain. Mm-hmm. Right? Just imagine that. Imagine you're going to go see a play and the curtain opens and it's this wonderful thing. But just know that sometimes right before the curtain opens, soup sandwich. Mm-hmm. And I want people to know that because I'm such I try to be such a humble person and just remember exactly where that was. I want people to know that, like I said, there's another side to your depression, to your anxiety, because I'm diagnosed with all of that. PTSD, there's another side of that. Mm-hmm. If you're addicted, there's another side of that. But it starts with you loving yourself. And like I said, like the example I used earlier, just using the things that we do for other people mm-hmm. and do it for you first. It's so simple that it seems complicated. Yeah. But it really is just about taking the time, taking the care that you do with other people's feelings, if you're that type of a person, and do that for yourself. Us not doing it for ourselves is a trauma response. Right. And so we need to be able to work through that.
Okay.
So I'm glad it looks like this. I'm glad this is what it looks like, because the work is grueling and I don't want anybody to be mistaken about that. The work is where your eyelashes is going to come off. The work is where you're going to want to throw your wig across the street. That's the journey,
right.
But the purpose, the goal of going through all of that, taking yourself through that, is so that you can come out clean on the other side. Right. And when you feel better about yourself, you present to other people better. I think I look a hot mess. You see a ray of light. That's beautiful. I think that's a beautiful thing.
Yeah. So I think what you shared today is already going to impact some lives. I don't know whether that's just my feeling. It's my gut feeling, right?
I hope so.
You didn't gloss over anything and you shared like an end result and you shared that there's a process to that end result. So there's hope. So you shared hope today, which I love. So I have one last question for you. So does it have to be related to what we discussed today?
No, it can be whatever. I'm an open book.
What would be the one best piece of advice that you could give another woman who's watching this today?
Become the beholder of your own beauty. So that any changes that you make, anything that you decide to do is about you. Do not listen to what other people are telling you you're supposed to be. Get to know you, get to love you, and then show the world who you are.
I love that. Thank you so much, SJ. You were phenomenal.
You
Um,
are so welcome. This was fun.
oh, great. So thanks for tuning in today. Don't forget to share this with someone you care about. And as always, like, comment, subscribe, keep going, and keep growing.